The moment the needle broke my skin, I knew it didn't belong to me. The angle was wrong. The temperature, the pressure behind the plunger, everything was off. I've injected myself with insulin more times than I can count. I know what it feels like, steady, familiar, almost automatic. But this was invasive. Too fast, too cold. Then suddenly, it burned. I counted my breaths and kept them shallow. I felt him leaning over me, his weight shifting the mattress slightly. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I recognized the rhythm of his movements. My son had learned it from me. I taught him how to clean a wound, how to draw a measured dose, how to give his father morphine when the cancer got bad. And now, here he was at my bedside, delivering something meant to stop a heart. I heard the syringe being tucked away. The floor creaked as he stepped back. A faint rustle behind him told me Mira was there too. She was always just behind him, watching, guiding, whispering. "It's done," she murmured. Her voice was closer than I expected. Just at the doorway. "The 9 million is ours by Tuesday. 9 million, not 8, not 10. I heard the precision in it. They'd been planning this. I stayed still. They watched me. I could feel their eyes scanning my chest for movement, watching my face for a twitch. But I gave them nothing. They left as quietly as they'd come. Only when I heard the door click shut did I open my eyes. Slowly, my left hand reached beneath the pillow. I pressed stop on the voice recorder hidden there. The red light on the camera blinked. Still recording. Still watching. My arm ached, the burn still traveling upward. I didn't know how long I had. I didn't know the exact dosage. But I knew my body, and I knew my training. I pushed myself upright, reached for the small bottle I'd hidden days ago in the drawer beside my bed. The antidote wouldn't cure everything, but it would buy me time. Time to get proof. Time to expose them. Time to begin. I remember the sound more than the pain. A hard crunch, then silence. My hips struck the stone path near the rose bushes, and I couldn't move. The sky above me blurred in the sun. Then I heard the back door slam. Mom Thomas's voice. Rushing steps, his hands on my shoulders. The hospital called it a clean break. "You're lucky," the surgeon said. It could have been worse. But I didn't feel lucky. I felt old. Slower. Alone, Thomas offered before I even asked. "We'll stay with you, Mom. Just until you're better," he said, taking my hand in his at the hospital. Mira nodded beside him. "We'll take care of everything." They moved in by Friday. I remember thinking how good it felt to have sound in the house again. Footsteps on the stairs, clinking dishes in the kitchen doors, opening and closing. The silence after Robert died had turned every room into a reminder. At first it helped. Mira cooked simple meals, always low sodium balanced. Thomas organized my pill boxes. He called them our little pharmacy routines. They sat with me at night, adjusted my pillows, reminded me to rest. I didn't notice the shift right away. When Thomas offered to handle my bills just for now, I agreed. The painkillers dulled more than the pain, they dulled my sense of time, of boundaries. Then came the requests. "Do you mind if we update your banking app? It's easier this way." "Mom, what's your password for the health portal again?" Mira started keeping the mail. "Don't stress," she said, her smile tight. "It's just junk and coupons anyway." One morning, I caught her in my home office phone, to her ear, scanning a drawer. She waved it off. "I was just wondering, what's the pharmacy property worth these days?" That was when my breath caught. She said it like it didn't belong to me, like it was an asset on a ledger waiting to be unlocked. I told myself they were helping, that it was grief, not suspicion, rising in my chest. But I didn't ask again what she was doing in that drawer. I wasn't supposed to be awake. It was sometime after 2. The air was still, the house quiet. I only got up because my mouth was dry and I needed a glass of water. I didn't even turn the lights on, just shuffled slowly toward the kitchen in my robe and slippers. Then I heard it soft but unmistakable, a metal drawer sliding closed. I froze at the end of the hallway. The sound had come from my study. I waited. A light flicked on under the door. Then it opened and Thomas stepped out. He jumped when he saw me. "Oh, Mom," he said, forcing a smile. "Didn't think you'd be up. I was just looking for stamps." His hand was still on the drawer. I nodded and said nothing. The stamps had always been in the kitchen drawer next to the fridge. He knew that. He'd known since he was a boy. I got my water. I went back to bed, but sleep didn't come with me. The next morning, Mira handed me tea and asked, "Where do you keep the property deeds again?" The way she said it, flat, casual, like asking about a grocery list, made something in my chest tighten. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Patricia Hayes. She'd handled my finances for over 2 decades. "Selma," she said, voice low. "There have been some transfers, significant ones. Did you authorize them?" I asked her to send everything. Later that day, I sat at my kitchen table with the documents spread before me. $48,000. Gone. Moved from my investment account to 2 external ones under names I didn't recognize. By the end of the week, it was $80,000. I waited until Thomas was alone in the kitchen. "I need to talk to you," I said, sliding the papers toward him. He didn't look surprised. He didn't apologize. "You have millions, Mom," he said, jaw tightening. "What do you need it for? You're 70. Be honest, how long do you think you'll really enjoy it?" That night I installed a new lock on my filing cabinet. But I left my bedroom door untouched. 2 mornings before the night of the injection, I sat at the edge of my bed with the insulin pen resting in my palm and felt something was wrong before I even looked at it. The cap didn't resist the way it usually did. It came off too easily, like it had been handled too many times. I held the pen up to the window, letting the early light pass through the cartridge, and my stomach tightened. The liquid inside wasn't clear. Insulin has a look to it. A consistency you recognize after years of handling it. This was thicker, faintly cloudy, the way it never should be. I tilted the pen, slowly watching how the fluid moved. Wrong density, wrong color, wrong weight. I set it down without injecting a single unit. For a moment, I just sat there listening to the sounds of the house, waking up Mira, moving around the kitchen, Thomas's footsteps on the stairs. I felt suddenly very aware of how alone I was in my own bedroom. I drew a small sample into a sterile vial and slipped it into my purse. Then I called David. He answered on the second ring. He always did. "David," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I need you to run something through the lab for me." Quietly, there was a pause. "What is it?" "Just do it," I said. "And don't ask questions yet." I drove myself to the pharmacy. David met me at the back. His brow furrowed, his mouth tight as he took the vial from my hand. The results came back the next morning. Potassium chloride. Concentrated. Lethal in the dose present. Enough to stop a heart cleanly, quickly. Enough to make it look like the body simply gave up. David didn't sit down when he showed me the report. His hands shook as he held the paper. "Selma," he said quietly, "someone is trying to kill you." I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I nodded. Once folded the paper and placed it back into my purse. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. I went straight to my study, closed the door, and called my lawyer, already knowing that whatever came next would require more than trust to survive. I didn't call the police. Not because I was afraid they wouldn't believe me, but because belief wasn't enough. A syringe and a lab report could prove tampering, not intent. I needed a clean line from motive to action, and I needed it recorded. Harold understood the moment I finished explaining. He didn't interrupt. When I stopped talking, he exhaled once and said, "We move quietly." By the end of that afternoon, my power of attorney was revoked. My will was rewritten and stored in 3 separate places. Every document was backed up to a secure cloud account Thomas didn't know existed. Harold kept copies. So did I. Then I hired a security company. The technician didn't ask questions. He walked through the house with practiced eyes and installed cameras no one would notice unless they were looking for them. One above the entryway, one in the kitchen corner, one facing the hallway outside my bedroom, one hidden among my books. Everything streamed to a server that wasn't tied to my home network. My phone became my last layer of protection. I kept it charged, silent, and face down beneath my pillow each night, the recording app always ready. Then I changed myself. I let my hands shake when I reached for a glass. I mispronounced words I'd known for decades. I pretended to forget what day it was. I sat down halfway up the stairs and laughed it off when Mira rushed over. "I'm just tired," I said. "Must be the medication." They believed me, or maybe they wanted to. Mira started sketching renovation ideas on the back of envelopes. Thomas talked openly about whether the pharmacy would sell better as a property or a business. They stopped lowering their voices when they passed my door. They were already living in the future they thought they'd secured. I listened. I nodded. I thanked them. And I smiled because I could feel the trap tightening around all of us, and I knew the next move would have to be theirs. I told them I was tired before dinner was even finished. Mira nodded too quickly, already on her feet. She brought me a cup of tea and watched as I drank it, her eyes following my hands instead of my face. Thomas asked if I wanted help with my injection, his voice careful, almost gentle. I said no. I said I could manage. I said I just needed sleep. In my bedroom, I turned off the lamp but left the door slightly ajar. I slid my phone beneath the pillow pressed record and set it to silent. The small cameras were already live. I lay on my back and counted my breaths until my body went still. Midnight came and went. Then the hallway floor creaked. I didn't open my eyes. I let my breathing stay slow and shallow the way it had when I was pretending to be weak during the day. The mattress dipped as someone leaned closer. I recognized the shape of him even with my eyes barely open, the familiar outline of my son at the side of my bed. The syringe caught the dim light as he raised it. "She changed the will," he muttered more to himself than to anyone else. "This way the old one holds. It all comes to me." Mira's voice came from the doorway, low and urgent. "Do it." The needle slid into my arm. The pain was immediate and wrong. Not a pinch, not pressure, but a sharp burn that spread fast like fire moving under my skin. Every instinct I had screamed at me to react, to push him away, to sit up and shout his name. I didn't. I stayed still. I let my face go slack. I forced my body to accept the pain without a sound. I heard the syringe withdraw. Footsteps retreated. The door closed softly behind them. I waited until the silence settled again, until I was sure they were gone. My heart was racing, the burn climbing higher up my arm, but my hands were steady when I reached for my phone and sat up in bed knowing the next thing I had to do could not wait. I dialed 911 with my phone still warm from recording. My voice shook when the operator answered, but the words came out clear. I told her about the syringe, about the burning in my arm, about the voices I'd heard in the dark. I told her there were cameras in the house, that everything was being recorded, that my son and his wife were still inside. She told me to stay on the line. An ambulance and police units were already on their way. I hung up only long enough to call Harold. "They tried to kill me," I said. There was no pause this time. "Don't let them leave," he said. "I'm coming." "They won't," I replied. They didn't know I was still alive. I changed out of my night clothes and pulled on a sweater, my movements careful and deliberate. The burning in my arm hadn't faded, but it hadn't worsened either. I stayed upright, steadying myself against the dresser once before walking downstairs. I stood near the front door and waited. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that follows a secret being kept. From the kitchen, I could hear Thomas and Mira talking in low voices, the scrape of a chair, the clink of glass. They were making plans. Red and blue lights washed across the walls as the sirens came into view. I reached for the door handle and opened it before anyone could knock. Thomas and Mira looked up at the sound. Thomas's face drained of color when he saw me standing there. "Mom," he said, his voice barely more than a breath. "I thought you were—" "You did," I said, and stepped aside. The officers entered behind me, their presence filling the room. One of them asked me to sit down. Another moved toward the kitchen, already asking questions Thomas couldn't answer. I handed over my phone, the recording still running, and gave them the login information for the security footage, knowing that from this moment on, the story would no longer belong to me alone. The case moved faster than I expected. Once the evidence was entered, there wasn't much to argue about. The syringe recovered from the kitchen trash matched the residue in my bloodstream. The lab report showed exactly what had been injected. The audio captured their voices clearly. The security footage filled in every gap between intention and action. Their lawyers didn't waste time. Both of them were advised to plead guilty. Thomas received 15 years. Mira received 12. Elder abuse, attempted murder, financial fraud. The charges stacked neatly one after another until there was nowhere left to stand. I didn't attend every hearing. I went to the first, sat in the back row, and kept my eyes forward. When Thomas turned around searching for me, I didn't meet his gaze. I focused instead on the sound of the judge's voice, steady and impersonal, as if reading someone else's life. After that, I stayed home. The letters started arriving within a week. Thomas's handwriting was familiar, slanted the way it had always been. I didn't open a single one. I fed them into the fireplace and watched the paper curl and disappear one envelope at a time. I met with Harold the morning after the sentencing. We sat at his conference table, the same one where he'd drafted my original will years ago, back when I still believed trust was enough. This time, there were no arguments, no hesitation. Every account, every property, every remaining asset. All of it redirected. Scholarships for pharmacy students, funding for senior care facilities, grants for community clinics that served patients without families to watch over them. There was nothing left for Thomas or Mira. Not a dollar, not a token. Harold asked once gently if I wanted to include an explanation. I shook my head. I didn't need to justify survival. I didn't need to explain boundaries written in blood and documentation. When I left his office, the air felt lighter, not relieved, not triumphant, just clear. And with the legal chapter finally closed, I began preparing for the part of my life that would no longer require courtrooms' evidence or silence to keep me safe. 3 months after the sentencing, I sold the house. I didn't go back to pack things myself. I had Harold send someone. The closets, the photo albums, the files, I told them what to keep and what to leave behind. Most of it stayed. The place was too full of ghosts and syringes and soft voices in the dark. I bought a small cottage in Vermont, just 2 bedrooms, a porch that overlooked a stream narrow enough to step across in summer. There were pine trees, maple, and a quiet stretch of road where the mail carrier knew my name. I adopted an old cat from the shelter. He was thin gray around the ears with eyes like washed riverstone. They said he was 12. No one else had asked for him. I named him Milo. He sleeps at my feet, curls against my chest on colder nights. Sometimes I wonder what he's seen, what kind of life was behind him. But we don't ask each other questions. We just stay close and breathe. Twice a week I volunteer at the local pharmacy. It's small, family-run. They were hesitant at first, but when I told them I didn't need pay, just a few hours to stay sharp, they handed me a clipboard and let me work. I talk to patients, ask about dizziness, notice refills that come too quickly or not at all. I caught a caregiver last week who was doubling a dosage that shouldn't have changed. I don't accuse, I document. I call the right people. People trust me here. Maybe it's the white coat, maybe the age. Maybe because I listen in a way that says, I know what can be buried in quiet. I walk to the market on Saturdays. The woman who runs the bakery always sets aside one cranberry scone for me. I never asked her to. That's just how people are here. It's peaceful. No locked drawers, no hushed arguments behind walls, no plans being made while I sleep. Milo curls on the windowsill as I finish sorting prescriptions. And in this silence, I only hear the stream. I wrapped the quilt tighter around my knees and let the steam from the mug warm my face. The tea steeped too long, but I didn't mind. Milo's breath rose and fell steadily on my lap, his paw resting near my wrist, like a reminder that something soft still trusted me. Outside, the sky was turning the kind of color that made you stop whatever you were doing. First orange, then pink, then that blue that only shows up for a few minutes before it vanishes into night. I didn't think about Thomas every day. I didn't need to, but sometimes, in the quiet between sunset and stars, I'd wonder, had he ever loved me? Or was I always just a bank account wearing a mother's face? That question used to hurt. It doesn't anymore. It's just something I accept like old bones that ache when it rains. I don't keep his photos. I don't keep his letters. I don't keep the nameplate from his room that used to hang on the door he slammed shut when he was 16. But I do keep the thank you notes, the ones from the scholarship students who call and write and visit. This year, the fund is putting 20 of them through pharmacy school. 20 kids with calloused hands and tired eyes who know what it means to watch a parent skip medication because it costs too much. They say they'll come back and serve their towns. Open clinics. Build trust where it's been broken. I believe them. The couple who bought my old house sent me pictures of the garden last week. The roses are blooming. They painted the mailbox red. There's a child's drawing on the fridge and new curtains in the kitchen. I don't see ghosts in the windows anymore. Just new roots growing where rot used to be. I sip the tea slowly. It's a little bitter, but it's warm. It's mine. Milo shifts and purrs. And in the hush of evening, I reach for the notebook by my chair. It's time to write something new.